Welcome to Bloodbath and Beyond. Today we review the long-awaited prequel of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Leatherface.
Directed by Julien Maury and Alexandre Bustillo, starring Stephen Dorff, Lili Taylor, Sam Strike, and Vanessa Grasse. This is the origin of Leatherface, a chainsaw-wielding maniac who wears other people's skin on his face. Anyway, this is basically him in his teenage years. He escaped from a mental institute with a couple other inmates and a nurse, and they're running from the lawman that are out for revenge. So what do we like? I thought this movie looked great. It was way better than I thought it was going to be as far as like how the cinematography and everything was and the production value, because this has been put on hold for like a number of years now, and we never thought we'd even see it, to be honest. And I've heard a lot of negative things about this movie, and I thought it would be based on like a low production value, but that isn't the case. I thought like almost all the shots were great, like everything looked nice. The detail with like all the production design looked excellent. It just felt like a big budget movie.
They also did a really good job with the casting of people. I felt that everyone in this film played an amazing part. I loved all the characters. We had Ike, who was just downright crazy.
Do let him go. I'll turn you into strawberry pie.
You legitimately feared him. And then you had Jackson, who kind of was our like protagonist, nice guy. And then you got Bud, who's the Lenny Smalls of the group. A big guy who is just gentle at heart but doesn't know his own strength.
I also thought Clarice was fucking psycho. She was like Ike's lover, I guess. She was like a little rambunctious sexually. Also, she's mad crazy. And then Lizzie, who's our like main female lead, who should not be in this situation. This is her first shift at a new hospital. She's like 5 hours in before there's a riot. Everybody breaks out and she's kidnapped and she's in for one hell of a ride. And I felt so bad for her. And she was good at making you feel bad for her because she was just like this really innocent person who had done absolutely nothing wrong. And she just has to deal with a lot of shit. And I felt bad for the actors in a couple spots, specifically when they climb out of that cow. Oh my god.
I also liked how they developed every single character because it had you guessing which one was going to be Leatherface or if all of them were a Sawyer.
The best part about this movie is that you don't know who Leatherface is. And it's just fun to like continue guessing. There's also some pretty solid gore in this movie. There's not a whole lot, but when there are some kills, like they're pretty vicious, there's a lot of blood, and just like brutal scenes for sure. Not as much chainsaw as I would have liked, and I think people would complain about that, but I mean, there's still like, I think a 22 person body count, and some of the kills come out of nowhere, which I can't show you because they're all spoilers. Now let's move on to our dislikes. I think part of the problem with this movie is the fact that we don't know who Leatherface is. And while I did enjoy that aspect, as an origin story that has been in production for years, you want to see kind of like almost like a Hannibal Rising situation where you know who Hannibal was and you're just watching how he grows. In this one, you don't know who Leatherface is. You're watching many people grow. You feel a little bit disconnected from Leatherface in general because it really doesn't have a Leatherface feel up until the last like 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, it's strange because majority of his lifestyle is dedicated to him being in this mental institution. You wouldn't assume that given the nature of all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films prior to this one, though they all take place after this one, because you would just assume he grew up with the family and he established those roots and those connections and that family heritage mentality of killing people.
Yeah, Saw is family.
The Saw is family.
We do have like a cool scene of like a kid getting a chainsaw for his birthday before he ends up going to the mental institution. And if they just kind of went with that route, then you can see that he didn't want to kill and he was influenced by everybody and then he grew up that way. But if he's been in a mental institution, he has no reason to have any ties to his family once he gets out.
Yeah, because he's only 7 years old, 8 years old, and then he's in a mental institute till he's like 18. The whole like portion of his life where he's learning how to be a killer like his family, he's actually just being helped by nurses and doctors, which is the exact opposite of how someone would end up.
You would think, anyway. Who knows? When they're pumping you full of pills,
The whole origin just doesn't feel right for the end result that we're aware of.
We've all seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. He's fucking insane, and he doesn't know anything but his family.
Yeah.
And in this, it seems like he's never even met his family, because they even describe that everybody at that institution has had like electroshock therapy, and they can't even remember their names, so he wouldn't remember his family. So it doesn't make any sense how the movie ends. I wish there were more kills. Straight up. I know there's a lot. Based on like the IMDb number, it says the body count's 22. A lot of these are just like gunshots, quick shots. But there's not a lot of like chainsaw stuff. But the stuff that we do see with the practical effects is really cool. But I just wish we had more of Leatherface as Leatherface. And less kids running away from cops in a field, which seemed to be like a good 20 minutes or maybe 40 minutes of this movie.
If you're going to go watch a Halloween movie or Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, there's a specific serial killer, a slasher, that you watch that film for to see them do the killing. Not some random cop shooting people off or some random character shooting someone. That's not why you want to watch this film. You want to see someone with a big chainsaw running around, cutting people up.
Potentially with a face made of other people's faces. Now it's time for our final thoughts and ratings. Leatherface was better than I expected, but it wasn't as good as I hoped. The production value was great, and I enjoyed our characters, and it definitely added something to the backstory of who Leatherface is. However, I think it took too long to get to where we knew who Leatherface was and to see that person act as Leatherface. I really wish that that happened about halfway through the movie as opposed to building up all of our characters for so long. But I also liked that. It's just weird. The practical effects were excellent, and I enjoyed a lot about this movie, but I don't think a lot of people that are fans of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series are going to like, to be honest, because there's not a lot of Leatherface. Maybe this would be taken a little bit better if we had a sequel to this version that kind of tied this in between, like this and the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That could be cool, but I don't think that's happening. So I'm gonna give this 2.5 Iron Fist cameos out of 5.
This film actually was a very good story. I enjoyed watching it from beginning to end, and I felt that this had some amazing character development and some characters that you could really get behind and be concerned with what's going to happen or what they're actually doing. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. However, because this is tied in with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, it's not as good as I would want it to be. It didn't feel as though it was an origin story of Leatherface. The concept of guessing and leaving the red herring as to which one of these kids was going to end up being Leatherface is a great touch, but you want to see Leatherface. By no means is this a bad movie. It's just not one that I would say fits in with the franchise. So with that being said, I'm going to have to give this film 2.5 cutting the lines to cut cake out of 5.
As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, there are links in the description where you can find it. If this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay updated with everything Bloodbath and beyond. And maybe one day we'll do some other Texas Chainsaw movies. One day.